Future EU Science. All right. So, Mr. President, could I just start with you? I mean, we heard in your speech, as I said, the passion that you bring to the research and innovation issue. But it's not obvious that it would have become such a priority for the EU at a time of economic hardship. Why? How?
There are several reasons, personal reasons for that, but the political reasons, a personal reason, if you want to know, my mother was teaching physics. And so when I was a boy, a very young boy, I wanted to go to literature. But it was not considered very serious at home because most of my family was in the science world, including my mother in physics. But as a policymaker, in fact, the question that we in the Commission these years we have our assessment was very clear. If we want Europe to gain the battle of globalization, or at least not to lose it, to be one of those who can shape globalization, we have to be more competitive. This is clear. And since we cannot work so much in terms of cost competitiveness, because we don't expect the Europeans to be ready to give up on what we call usually the modèle social européen, or the European social model, the social market economy. We are proud of having open societies, open economies, but we want to keep welfare systems. We want to keep some rights, social rights. The only way, in fact, I would say, or at least the most obvious way, is in fact to increase our competitiveness, not by reducing costs, but by increasing our capacity to innovate. I just read in an interesting study of the OECD. The OECD, they estimate that investments in innovation account for 60 to 70% of labor productivity growth in the most developed economies. So it means that investments in innovation, like intangible assets, investment in intangible assets like skills, research and development, or software, can account for 60 to 70%. This is why in our dialogue with member states, because it is not easy to find, I can tell you now, I'm becoming increasingly serious, I'm increasingly sincere the time I'm approaching the end of my mandate. The reality is that it's not easy for our governments to agree on economic policy. The real difficulties in Europe are not so much as people say sometimes, the difference between, let's say, Finland and Greece, or it starts with different economic cultures between France and Germany. It starts there. But if there is a point where I believe the heads of state and government of Europe can agree, and that's where we tried to get, namely, the agreement for the budget, we needed to decide. At the end, it was a decision of the heads of state and government, is on science and research. And they agree that innovation can be a very important, let's say, driver for growth and competitiveness. This is one of the reasons why, at least already in my first commission, when we tried to revise the goals of the Lisbon strategy, you remember there was a Lisbon strategy that was not so successful because, according to the Wim Kok report, it was not sufficiently focused, and there were problems of governance too. When my commission proposed the revision of the Lisbon strategy, and that became afterwards Europe 2020, we said, we have to focus. We cannot have 300 targets. Let's have 4 or 5 maximum. And at the center of those targets were precisely innovation and science and education. And it was relatively easy, to be honest, to get the agreement of our member states on science and innovation. Not so much in education. It's considerable the difference. But this is basically why. From a policy point of view, I think, in Europe, if we want to attain our objectives of growth and competitiveness, we need more innovation. And also from a geopolitical point of view, the President of the Republic, by the way, mentioned that in his statement. From a geopolitical point of view, this is also extremely important. Others are now catching up very quickly. And if Europe wants to keep a leading position, it needs to do it. Now, I just want to finalize with a comment. I'm not one of those who thinks that science is just instrumental. Of course, as a policymaker in the European Union, the European Commission, we have to look at the impact of the decisions from an economic point of view. But I personally believe that science and culture in general, including art, are ends in themselves in the way that they help us fulfill our dreams, our goals. So I want to make that point clear because I don't like also to see the reference to science just from a pragmatic point of view. Man or a woman, we want to know what's there, what's out there in the universe. And that's a goal in itself. So apart from that, probably that was where my mother had some influence. Apart from that, I think it is important from an economic point of view to invest more in science, innovation, and research.
Debates in the Parliament and elsewhere, though, you can get the impression that it's very much an economic issue in the end. Politically, was there any point at which you thought, wow, that this is not going to work? Was there any particular moment in the process when it seemed most difficult?
I think the most difficult point was in the middle of the financial crisis, where the temptation of all national governments, and I've been in national government 12 years, so I'm not criticizing the governments, but the temptation of national governments was to go national, to forget about the budget at European level. That was a real threat. And so we had to face the negotiation of the MFF, the multi-financial framework, for these 7 years now, from 2014 to 2020. We had to convince our governments to have a credible program at European level. Because some of our governments, some of them you know well, are those who want to reduce all the, I'm looking to our friends, not, some governments are willing to cut all the European expenditure, and they, with an argument of subsidiarity. They are not, of course they are not against science, they are not against social matters, they are not against industry, they are not against research, but they say, let's do it at national level. Why should the Commission do it on the time? Yeah. So it was very important. That's where I want to pay tribute to Moira Guggenquin and also to our services, our people in the Commission, because we were able to present a program that has shown the value added of the European funding. So we had a strong argument. And I had to spend, I can tell you, some time with all the heads of state and government to try to convince them why we needed to do more on that matter. And I was telling you very honestly and very frankly, it was easier for me to do it in terms of science and than in other sectors. But of course, the overall ambiance was negative regarding public investment. So that was the moment where I felt it could be at risk, but at the end, I think the result, I mean, it's not bad. Indeed, considering the circumstances, it's a very, very good result in terms of funding for research.
30% increase is extraordinary. If I could bring Jan into this at the moment, I mean, I think, Mr. President, an important step along the way was the support that came from the business community for the increase and for Business Europe, which you're representing as well.